I'm here at Maruba Beach at the cafe.
It's nice.
It's just because, it's important to get out, and that's kind of the topic for today, which is getting out and about and being fit and eating well and doing the right things. So I'm going to go for a run after we have our little chat.
That's it. Yeah, cool.
So let me just see. Just give me 1 second. This is recording. That's cool. All right. Can you hear me okay?
Can you hear me?
I can. Yes. Okay, great. So let's begin. Lyndi, firstly, I just want to say thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed. And it was nice bumping into you last Saturday, last Shabbat on our walk. And that kind of, I left thinking, you'd be a great person to interview and to, get your expertise and share it with our community, because they'll be eventually watching this. So Lyndi, you've done very well for yourself. You've written a book, and you're highly sought after, and you have a lot of knowledge. And I think during this time of COVID, when a lot of people are indoors, people are trying to get out, but who knows what's happening now with lockdown in Melbourne and Victoria, and whether that spreads here. And I think it's just important to look after ourselves physically. And that's something which you have more knowledge about than I do. So
yeah, great chat. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Can you maybe just tell us just briefly a little bit about yourself and how you got into
what I do? Yes.
What you do, pretty much.
I'm a dietitian. I'm a nutritionist, and I've been doing this for about 10 years now. And I am deeply fascinated by why we choose to eat the foods that we do. Because I think for the most part, we all know what we should be doing, but for some reason, whole range of reasons actually, we don't end up doing it. And then we get into this whole kind of cycle and this strange relationship with food. So I'm very interested in helping people feel relaxed and calm and easygoing around food, and taking away some of that stress so that you can actually eat healthily and exercise, but it doesn't have to take over your life, and it doesn't have to be a pain point, and it doesn't have to be this thing that you struggle with forever. Because I think for many people, they feel like they're always working to try and shift the last 5 kilograms or 20 kilograms or whatever it is, and it always feels like a burden on them.
And how important is food to your state? Eating well, exercising. How important is that to your frame of mind, to your well-being?
I mean, it's huge. I mean, okay, as I said, if we were robots, I could simply say to you, eat this food, and you would do it, but we're not. We're humans, we're complex, we're emotional creatures, which means that we have a deeply emotional relationship with food. So let's say growing up, you were taught that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. That does something to you. Let's say you were told that you have to finish everything on your plate. That does something to you too, about your ability to stop eating when you feel full. And then we have the aspect of the fact that we celebrate with food. So when it's your birthday, there's a beautiful cake. When it's a chagim, we all get together, and we, especially Jewish people, we celebrate with food. So it can get quite complex, especially when you have a lot of chagim that are kind of stacked together. It can kind of feel a bit overwhelming, because on the one hand, you're thinking, well, I know that eating too much isn't going to make me feel good and make me feel healthy. But on the other hand, all this good stuff is waiting for me. And so it can be this kind of push-pull, this good-bad relationship that we develop with food, where it can feel like, for many people, and this isn't everyone, I'd say maybe around 10% of people naturally don't have to think about their weight. Healthy eating is quite easy for them. But for the majority of people, it is something that they worry about, where they might try to be good, and that basically means eat all the right things, but either they come home from work and they're just so exhausted, they end up eating everything in the kitchen, or they eat really well for the entire week, but it gets to the weekend and suddenly it's like, you're going out for brunch and dinner and you have Shabbos, and just suddenly you just feel like you have to start again every single Monday. So we have a deeply emotional relationship with food, and that doesn't even consider the guilt that we feel when we do overeat. So we do this thing where we try to be good. We beat ourselves up over not sticking to it because life happened. And then we go right back to all or nothing thinking, where we think we have to try and be extra good. And so the pendulum swings further and further, where we get more extreme, eating less and then eating more and feeling guilty, and it can be a lot. So that's the psychosocial aspect of how food affects our state. When we eat healthily, we know we feel good. You can explain it to a toddler and say, when you eat too many lollies, you don't feel good in your tummy. And this is your body's way of trying to explain to you that those foods don't make you feel good. They don't make you feel like you're thriving. And you know that when you're eating these healthy foods, they do give you the right kind of energy. You don't get sick as much, and that's awesome. So physically, what's happening in your body, it's really great. Gut health is this huge topic these days, and everyone likes to hype it up. And yes, you should be having your probiotics. Things like plain Greek yogurt is an awesome source. One of the things that happens in your gut, when your gut is really healthy, your immunity is boosted, but so is your mood. So some really interesting research into showing that a healthy diet can not only help prevent depression and anxiety and mood disorders, but it may also be able to help us maintain a healthy, happy state. And for the people who are already feeling like they're down and life has gotten tough, it can be one mechanism that we can use to help us feel good. And the way that this happens is often through gut health. So I want to give you a quick little tip. When it comes to gut health, the most important thing we can be doing is eating variety. People want to ask me, what's the perfect diet? How does that look? Tell me what I should eat and I'll eat it. Wouldn't that be lovely if I could do that? But the best diet is one that's constantly changing. As the seasons change, we're changing the fruits and vegetables that we're buying. We're trying different foods. And the recommendation is that you have 30 different types of plant-based foods in a week. So let's say you sit down to a meal. What I want you to try and do is just count how many different types of food are there. And maybe there's only 3. But what we're aiming for is as many as possible. And that way, what we're doing is you think about your gut as a rainforest. If you have just one crop in a rainforest, it's actually it's a field, it's a farm. It's not that biodiverse. What we want is richness. We want lots of different gut bugs, because different gut bugs are going to be able to protect you from a whole range of different things. So whatever illnesses might come your way, you have the defense force to be able to protect yourself. And that's from eating a variety of diets, feeding the variety of gut bugs that help you stay well and help boost your immune system.
It's so beautiful, Lyndi. You said it so well, so eloquently. And just leading on from that, I mean, especially now during this time, when you needed to build up that defense force, as you're saying. So I guess now more than ever, it's so important to have that variety, because it'll protect you from whatever's out there in the world, and just build up your immunity, build up your body, your strength.
It can give you a really great buffer, these things like eating well and exercising. One of the problems and the things that a common mistake I see from people is that they expect way too much from themselves. So let's say you've had a week, a month, a whole quarantine of unhealthy eating, and you're like, right, I've got to get healthy. I've got to change everything. And suddenly you go from, couch potato to wanting to eat perfectly and exercise like crazy. And what ends up happening is, of course, this is very unsustainable. But what we do with nutrition in particular and exercise is we have a very negative approach to it. So instead of focusing on all the foods that we want to eat more of, we create a long list of foods that we're now no longer allowed to eat. So, okay, can't eat cake, and I shouldn't be eating this, and the list goes on. And as a result, we're like a toddler being told that we can't have something. It's all we can end up thinking about. So when we have this negative approach to food, all it does is it increases cravings, increases the likelihood that you're actually going to fall off the bandwagon. The truth is, there's nothing wrong with people's willpower. People haven't suddenly just gotten lazy in the last few years. What we're battling at the moment is an intense influx of food rules that make us feel really guilty when we mess up, and they set us up for failure with very high expectations. So something we can do that's way more positive is to actually start to think about the foods we want to eat more of. And I refer to this as crowding. So instead of thinking of the foods you can't eat, which makes you want them more, we think of how we're going to crowd in more healthy foods. And especially if you've got kids, this is a great way to talk about food, because we know these foods are going to make us feel good, so we want more of them in our diet. when we crowd in more vegetables, more fruit, more whole grains, more legumes, the things we know are good for us, we actually don't have as much room for the less healthy options. So we didn't even have to create a list of bad, because suddenly we can just focus on the foods that we want to eat more of. We feel fuller, we don't feel deprived, we get on with our life, plus we eat healthily. This way we're so much more consistent and it's much more realistic. Something that blows my mind is that in Australia, we only have 5% of the country eating enough vegetables per day. 5%. So the recommendation is very simple. It's 5 serves of vegetables per day. So 5 serves. A serve of vegetable is the size of your fist. Your fist is a different size from mine. A toddler's is a different size for them. So everyone can use the size of their fist for their body. And this is a simple recommendation that if everyone were hitting it, we wouldn't have the nutrition issues that we have. But instead of eating more vegetables or eating 2 serves of fruit per day, 1 to 2, that's the recommendation, that only 50% of people do that one. If we just did that, we'd be feeling so much healthier. But one of the things we're always doing is we're looking for the secret answer in nutrition. We want to go, okay, tell me this rule, tell me I can't have carbohydrates, and I will do it and I will follow it. And we just want it to be that simple. But there's no magic solution to nutrition. And if I had to say there was a magic solution, the magic solution is to eat way more vegetables than you currently do. Double it, triple it. First start by adding in 1 more serve of vegetables, crowd in the healthy stuff, and you're going to naturally feel better. You're not going to feel deprived. It's such a win-win.
Can I just ask you, talking about food in Judaism specifically, you just triggered a thought, because I think, as you said in the beginning, like for us as Jews, food is like central to everything we do. They say that every festival can be summed up by the following phrase: they tried to kill us, we won, so let's eat, right?
That's our people, yes.
Every single festival has its own unique Jewish food. And even just spiritually, if you think about the concept and the different foods we have, that they all link to the nature and the essence of the festival. Like matzah, it's about humility. It's about freedom, which is often about finding your humble state. That's matzah on Pesach, right? You have the Hamantash on Purim. You remember Haman and evil versus good. Every food is somehow connected spiritually to the nature of the festival. But I wanted to ask you, because we as Jews have like specific foods, like we have, chicken soup, and your grandmother's always been telling you that if you have a cold, then have chicken soup. How true is that? And like Sholent on Shabbos, like, you talk about variety. Did our Jewish ancestors have that much variety in their diets? Because it seems like we have certain fixed foods, and they're like the answer for every malady, every sickness. You have this food, and you'll be better. What's the story with that?
Well, I mean, you think about kashrut, that is fundamentally about food safety. So for many, many centuries, our people remained healthier because we had to wash our hands before a meal, because we were aware of things like the amount of meat and milk and how we mix them. And I think it really did keep us very safe for a long time. And so there's that fundamental rule that actually just kept us out of harm. As for something like, Boba or grandma's chicken soup, you got to think about it. It's a very food safe item, so it can be reheated very hot. There's often vegetables hidden inside it, which is fabulous. It's often got a combination of some carbohydrates and some protein. And I think it's just the kind of thing that's good for your soul. It is very warming. Nutritionally, it's not packed with a lot of things that are going to, those micronutrients that you need. But, I think sometimes you just need something that is quite wholesome. And I know when I get sick, that's definitely what I want. And as for the different chagim having different foods, I mean, that definitely makes sense. What that speaks to is this idea of changing in fluidity through the cycle of the year. And this idea, what we have at the moment is we have avocados available year round. We have, if you want to get your hands on a mango in winter in Australia, it's possible. Anything's possible. We have pineapples. These things normally wouldn't have been available. And so what we got to consider is that the whole food supply has shifted to meet our demands, to go, all right, we actually want year-round available tomatoes when they are very much a summer food. And our ancestors would have naturally had this variety in their cycle. But for us as consumers, go to Woolies or Coles, we can get anything we want. But with the Chagim, we have these changing foods. And what I encourage you to do is get out of your rut in cooking the exact same meals and try to have that seasonal variety that we naturally see. Let the changing year inspire you with new things that you maybe haven't done since your Boba showed you how to do it like 10 years ago, and try that recipe again. And I think, that way, I think food for Jews is a way to connect to the past. It's something so deeply emotional, so lovely. And not all Jewish food is healthy food, but I think there's a time and a place for unhealthy food. We can't eliminate these foods from our diet completely. That's not sustainable. That's not the aim of the game. Enjoy them without guilt, with joy, and then get on with your life. Have fun.
I absolutely love that. That is so true. There's a time and place for everything. That's beautiful. And you know what? You're so right. I know as a rabbi of a community, the most successful services, the highlight of every service we have on Shabbat, let's say we get 150 or 200 people coming to shul on a big weekend, the highlight is the Kiddush. It's when we eat.
Yeah.
It's like every successful event will have an element of food to it. That's why people come. It's the great unifier.
Absolutely.
It's the great that brings us together. But lastly, Lyndi, and I really appreciate your time with us today. Lastly, how do you keep positive? Because you're such an energetic, you have a beautiful way about you, you're always smiling. How do you stay positive? To all those listening, what's a bit of advice you can give them how to, just stay upbeat and get through every day?
It's such a good question. And for myself, I was diagnosed with clinical anxiety about 10 years ago now. So looking after my mental health is something that I really actively work at. And I'd say it's something I do every single day. Because I don't think you just wake up feeling good every single day. I think it's a choice that you make. And there are some things that we can absolutely do to change that state of mind. One of the things that I do now is that I see exercise as something I do for my mental health. Very long ago, I used to think that exercise was about punishment. It was about, I ate too much, so I need to exercise. My doctor told me I have to exercise, so I have to exercise. And now I think it's such a privilege to be able to move your body, to go outside and enjoy the sun and or enjoy the rain and just get out there and move your body. You always feel better for it. And so changing my relationship with exercise to be like that has been huge for my mental health. And I think we have this idea when it comes to exercise that it has to be grueling and hard and feel exhausting, and that's not the case. So one of the things I always talk about is this idea called the enjoyment zone. When it comes to exercise, you want to always stick within the enjoyment zone. Forget the fat burn zone, forget the cardio zone, whatever zone you think you need to be in. The most important thing with exercise is that you're always enjoying it, because when you enjoy exercise, you're consistent. And when you're consistent, you're healthy. What's the point in going to the gym one day in a month and killing yourself and getting injured? What we really want is if you go for a 20-minute walk every day and you put on a podcast that you really like, you move your body, you feel grateful for that moment you get, you come back with a positive mindset. This is health. It's not people at gyms, or it can be people in gyms, but it's not this vision we have of the person on the front cover of a fitness magazine, who's training like a crazy person to look like that. It's simply people having energy to get on with their lives and finding, as I said, just having more time for the good stuff. And I will also say, because I think this needs to be said, I think we think that we need to be really sick before we go and see a psychologist or a therapist or a counselor. But I don't think that's the case. I think we need to see the fact that many really successful people go and see mental health support way before there's any issue. In fact, when they're doing really well, because if you want to thrive, think of a psychologist as a personal trainer for your brain. You have this organ that's the most important organ, arguably, in your whole body for your motivation and how you get things done. And we barely pay it any attention. And so when it comes to our health, what if we did something proactive for our health? What if we were proactive instead of waiting to feel like we're feeling hopeless and we're feeling so alone? And if you are feeling those things, then absolutely go speak to someone. When I was feeling that way, I did, and it was the best thing. It can take many years, but honestly, it can be pretty life-changing. I always think that seeing a psychologist is kind of like putting on a life vest before you get into a boat. You know, if you fall in, it can help you stay afloat. It gives you the coping mechanisms that you need to stay in a positive mindset. And I think those are two things, along with healthy eating, of course, that I always try and do to stay positive.
Lyndi, that is beautiful, really. So well said. And again, thank you so much for your time. For people who will be watching this, where can they find you? Where can they follow you? You've written a book,
Yes, I
The
have a
Nude
book,
Nutritionist.
The Nude Nutritionist. Yes, it's all about being stripped bare, back to basics. So don't worry, it's a family friendly book. If you want to find out more, you can go to my website, which is Lyndi Cohen. I do a whole range of things. I have an app to help people eat healthily and exercise without the guilt, without the obsession, and to just feel good in their bodies. I have a program for people who struggle with overeating and binge eating. And I do a whole lot of stuff online, you know, from if you're on social media, if you're on Instagram, find me at nude_nutritionist. I always love saying hi to you guys, so I'd love to hear from you.
All right, Lyndi, that was beautiful. Thank you so much again for your time, and go from strength to strength.
Thanks,
Keep up
Yossi.
your great work and your work in the